9 in 10 people can't tell me what this weapon is or what it does. You don't know either? If you actually didn't know, I'm sorry I lied about that statistic. Yup, the Enforcer. Probably the least used out of all of Spy's weapons. Heck, I've even seen the red tape used more than this thing. Don't worry, my child. They'll see your glory soon. The Enforcer is probably the most spread-thin weapon in the game. Like, initially people used this thing a ton. The extra damage was well worth the downside, even if it was a bit strong when it first came out. But now, it's just weird. Doing the obligatory stat check quickly, what was initially an extra 20% damage when it first came out has been changed into a plus 20% damage boost while disguised, and a damage resistance piercing to go along with that 20% decreased fire rate. So it's kind of turned into a disguised weapon that requires good aim that can also do more damage to things with resistance like the Vaccinator. Yeah, it's a really strange weapon in terms of having a role now. Since, well, it doesn't really have a clear role. So, I used my spy knowledge and decided to hop into a few competitive scrimmages with this thing to figure out what it can do so that you don't have to. Alright, so going into our first game, I really didn't expect too much since it really does just seem like a slower stock revolver. I might get a Fist of Steel heavy kill every now and then, or do some extra damage here and there, but the question is if those random situations are worth a slower firing speed. Obviously, consistency would be very much preferred in the form of the stock revolver on paper, but we're not even too far into experimenting yet, so who's to say? As for my other weapons, I wasn't really thinking too much about my loadout at the time because I didn't really see too much synergy with other weapons, other than like maybe the Your Eternal Reward. But you just lose your disguise anytime you fire the Enforcer, so I ended up just sticking with the Spycicle and Cloak and Dagger, which are my current main picks for competitive. Right as I got into my first round with this thing, I already came into a realization about some synergy with this weapon. If you look here, I go for a stab but get caught by a stray flame. Nothing super interesting about this at first, just a common downside of the Spycicle. But as I pull out my gun to go for a salvage play, noticed I'm still disguised and do just enough damage to get the demo here. And that's when I realized how good the Spycicle can be with the Enforcer. Since with the Spycicle you end up trading some offensive capabilities for some defensive ones, something that can offset that even a little bit is always welcome. And especially for those more passive spies who like to use the Spycicle, it can really suck to have all that waiting and planning ruined by one flame particle when the time arises. Now I'll admit it isn't a big boost, but since most times you'll still be disguised when your Spycicle goes out, you can whip out your Enforcer to still get that 20% damage boost. And since everyone's already in combat, an extra 50 to 70 damage is very useful to help clean up. So I'm happy to announce that the Enforcicle shred is not dead, gentlemen. It's not the most impactful effect, but it's definitely there, since it gives you a good option to get out of hot water that doesn't require the immense skill of the Ambassador. While disguised, you're able to kill every light class in 2 shots instead of 3, plus Pyro and Demo in 3 shots instead of 4 at close range, so if you're confident at hitting body shots, this thing ain't that bad and can actually have a pretty significant effect on gameplay. Pyro catches you, all you gotta do is hit half your clip. Scout on you, 2 shots and he's dead. NG looking at you, not anymore. Most people will dismiss this fact by saying that it only works if you're up close to your enemy, but where are you gonna be as Spy regardless? And yeah, again, these are the more minor changes, but when you're actually in a game, you start to notice these changes a lot more. Don't worry though, now we'll be taking a look at the more impactful changes that really have a noticeable effect in action. Of which, the main draw of using this thing in competitive is sentries, more specifically the Wrangler.
I got a level 3, and you have that?
Their gun's dead. Oh yeah, this thing absolutely melts Wrangler sentries. It's basically a sapper that you can use at any range when a sentry is being wrangled, which can allow you to pressure the sentry out of being wrangled from the complete opposite side of the map. You see, it's a combination that the Enforcer just ignores all of the damage resistance that the Wrangler gives the sentry, and the fact that sentries always take base damage from weapons no matter what the range, that turns this thing into a sentry killing machine. And don't think that the engineer can just heal the sentry. No, you do about 1/5 of the level 3 sentry's health from every shot. And the engineer is very reduced healing while the Wrangler is out, though he has basically no chance to do anything about it, unless A, they unwrangle the sentry, leaving it vulnerable to everything else, B, they send a scout or pyro to kill you, taking pressure off the front lines, or C, they try to kill you themselves and put themselves and their gun more at risk. Let's see what option this team tried. Ooh, looks like they're trying for B. And they're not just sending their scout, but their pyro too, yikes. And it's during an uber push when they need to be with their team the most? Sure, I died, but I think we all know who the real winner is here.
Come back, run.
Hard top of hill,
Heavy
hard top
bind.
of hill, hard cap.
Huge, great.
Now obviously, this strategy can depend on the map and the team, plus a million other things, but I do not want to undersell how effective this is at pressuring wrangled sentries, especially in more wide open maps where the Wrangler should be used more often. You can just set up shop in a weird angle or space right outside the sentry's range and, well, by now you know how it ends. Sure, it can be risky to go for, but the ability to kill sentries from any range at any time whenever your team needs it makes it all worthwhile in my opinion. I even had a game where I hard focused the gun, basically leaving my flank open the entire time, using this cursed loadout. Okay, I know this loadout looks like it's my first time playing the game and I just chose random items, but look, I have a plan for every single item, trust me. The plan for the Enforcer is, well, I just told you guys that part. The Spycicle is to help camp for longer and survive longer, as well as synergizing with the Enforcer, as I mentioned earlier. The Cloak and Dagger is, again, to help me camp and wait for good opportunities. And, yeah, the elephant in the room. Trust me when I say that I'm planning to go a lot more in depth with the red tape recorder in the future, but for now all I say is I'm using it to take care of the sentry when they try to retreat to the second point. After taking care of their level 3, they're forced to defend with under-leveled guns as my team pushes in. And I can just camp back here harassing the gun while my team barely even has to bat an eye at the engineer. So yeah, this weapon is pretty good at dealing with sentries to say the least. And that's not all. Going back to this weapon's effect on players, we have the razorback snipers. Again, this thing comes really handy when you can't backstab your target. So even if you aren't running the Spycicle, this thing can be even a little bit useful on players. I mean, sure, you could just use the stock or the l'étranger and 3-shot them, but then it gives them a sliver of a chance of getting to strike back. Plus, hitting 3 shots is a fair bit harder than hitting 2, especially since the sniper can't even react to 2 when he's scoped in. This makes the Enforcer act as a pseudo backstab when the sniper is wearing a razorback. Shoots a bit slower than backstabbing, but it's just fast enough to be a lot safer when using it against razorback snipers versus stock. Now luckily, I don't have too many competitive clips of me fighting razorback snipers, but when I find one, you already know what weapon I'm choosing. And you definitely already know that I will taunt them every single time. Now you could technically use the Ambassador for a similar effect, but not only is it harder to use in high pressure situations, but it doesn't have the other added benefits of the Enforcer, making it a bit less flexible as a whole. If you have solid aim though, go for it. Or alternatively, your demo could just do this. That was Sergeant Salad, by the way. Absolute Chad and fellow comp player. Be sure to go check out his channel and you might find me in some clips. Wait, no, none of that! And so my final Bad Weapon Academy rating on the Enforcer is... it's not all that bad. I know I kind of went into this thinking I wasn't going to be able to find any genuine uses for this thing, but in a competitive setting at least, it's got some good merit. It's even started being used pretty commonly in competitive leagues. So yeah, casual players, we competitive players can be hip too. Now, obviously it's not perfect right now because its damage boost is kind of inconsistent in how effective it is, but maybe if it gets another damage buff along the line, then we'll see some more use from it. Mayhaps I'll even buff it in a modded server and force competitive players to play with it. I guess you'll have to subscribe to find out. The Enforcer might seem a bit odd on paper, but in practice it's got good use in a competitive setting as a mean of piercing sturdy defenses. And who would have thought that it'd be its damage piercing stat to give it that boost, huh? Alright, so I don't really know how to end the video here, but subscribe for bi-weekly uploads and follow my Twitter, I guess? Oh, and also my Discord server. That'll be in the description too. Okay, bye!